Woohoo! All right. Thursday night, May 5th, Cinco de Mayo Day. Um, it is, wow, looks like I've got rain coming in. Well, that's nothing new. We've been had a ton of rain this spring, so not anything new. Welcome to Eight Questions with. I'm your host, Patrick. Have Cheetah will view, and we will be interviewing a very talented man today, film director, music composer, and artist Rich Ragsdale. Rich has just his new movie has just hit the market. It's called The Long Night, and it stars Taylor Scout Compton, or Scout Taylor Compton. Always get that confused. Scout Taylor Compton. Hey, Echo. Jeff Fahey and Deborah Unger, and it comes out on WellGO-USA. I went to get a copy of that today to watch, and it was sold out at my local Walmart. So, like I told Rich, it was a good news, bad news. Bad news was I wasn't able to get this movie to watch, and the good news is because it was sold out. So we both agreed that the good news outweighed the bad news. So he'll be here in about 15 minutes. Yeah, I'm looking forward to this. We we have a love of a certain movie that we're going to be talking about. We also have a lot in common as far as music goes. He's worked with some artists that I've worked with, which he didn't know that. Yeah, that is good news, right? Anytime a movie is sold out at a store, I don't care if you get three copies of it or 10 copies of it or 20 copies of it. When it comes out and you sell out of it, it's a good thing. That's a good thing. Um, I will get it. I definitely am interested in getting it. I mean, I like the entire cast that he has. I think it's going to be it's going to be a lot of fun. The cover's wicked. I like that, and uh, yeah, especially with the physical media aspect goes. I went to my, like I said, I went to my Walmart by my house, and this was this first time I've gone to that Walmart in about, since the pandemic started. And I was expecting it to be like my other Walmart, which is just dog poo. But my Walmart closest to me, it actually was pretty well stocked with films. Um, yeah, they had a nice big row. They had three full bins. I was a little bit optimistic, and it was busy. At the end cap, they only had, like, I went in there because I was thinking about buying Cyrano, or at least, if the price was right, and I was looking for sure. I was going to look to buy the Ledge with Brittany Ashworth. I really was looking for that. But they're both, Cyrano had one copy left, and the Ledge was sold out. So people are still buying. They're still buying these movies. Um, yeah, this one, mine has a pretty good one. Um, and the one closest to me, and so it's a positive thing. I looked at it. Most of the time you go there, you look for something, you can't find it, you get, oh, damn. But that wasn't my attitude. It wasn't my attitude then. It wasn't my attitude today. I mean, of course, I was hoping the Ledge would be there today, but it wasn't there either. So, uh, but you know what? That's okay. That's okay. Um, what I'll do is I'll probably go over to Walmart.com after the show's over, see if they have it in stock, and see if I can get it that way. I'll have them sent to my house. So I'm not too worried about it. Um, so yeah, but it's a good problem to have. It's a problem that I miss as a collector. I miss going inside and having a movie that I want not be there. That means someone else is watching it. You know, when I went to Family Video, they're notorious for carrying independent movies. They would only carry one copy of it. It'd just be one little copy of the movie. Unlike Blockbuster, who oh, yeah, I think I froze. Did I freeze? Yeah, I did. Ah, okay, there I go. Wow. And yeah, and they don't still don't have any good service. Yeah, that sucks. That sucks. Um, but they were Family Video was notorious for stocking one independent label. You know, that was all they got. It wasn't like Blockbuster where they would have 20 copies of movies. So there would be times where I would roll in there looking for one movie, you know, probably most likely an ISC midnight film, and it would be rented out. So it's like, oh, you know, the people would apologize for that. You know, the people at the store that they apologize. I'm sorry it's not in, but I was like, you know what? I'm really happy that it's not in. That means people are renting it, which means people are in here, which means you get business. I mean, you know, it was quite all right. I was totally happy with that. So, new Dollar Tree Theater did that today. We watched and reviewed Garfield, A Tale of Two Kitties. That won the week, so I reviewed that. There's still plenty of time to vote for the week after that. For next week's show, we are voting on Shocker, Wes Craven's Shocker, which is actually leading right now. We have Soul Reaper, with this badass cover. That is a wicked cover. I gotta give the cover something. Um, and then a comedy from I believe from the '90s. I think this is in the '90s. I could be wrong. I think it's the late '90s. Uh, Out Cold with Jason London and Lee Majors. Jason London and his brother Jeremy, they end up doing a lot of sci-fi channel direct after this. Yeah, they, they didn't. Yeah, that happens. But I've seen the movie before. It's pretty damn cute. Uh, yeah, try to. Yeah, I miss that. I miss going to the family video for sure. That was the video store. You know, I wish I had known about it beforehand. Um, yeah, hopefully you can do it today. Maybe tonight. You know, like after 12. You know, when the broadband's more willing, you know, it's more open. I know that a lot of times my videos take longer to load during prime time. So uh, I'm thinking about starting a new series. I'm thinking about starting a new series. I'm trying to figure out if I'm, um, if you see a movie called Chinese Speaking Vampire Dollar Tree, be warned. I picked it up, and when I opened it, there was a odd smell. Maybe it was bad Chinese food. Maybe it was Chinese food gone bad. Just throwing that out there. Just to guess. Uh, so yeah, I'm thinking about starting a new series. Um, I've been thinking about this for a while because I talked about it before. When I was talking about a show called Into the Badlands, and I was thinking about going through a TV series. Basically, it's nothing new. It's just it would be a deep dive on some TV series that I have. Um, and I thought it might be a lot of fun. The key being that the series would be rather small, you know, like a single season or short run seasons. You know, it would be, maybe I could try something a little bit bigger, but uh, but I was thinking about that. I'm not sure. I'm not sure whether I would record it. I think I probably would record it. I think that'd probably be best. Trying to figure it out. Yeah, I got some ideas. I got the first series I thought about doing is actually I took it downstairs and I started watching it, and it's an old series from the early 2000s, I think. Hold on, I can tell you. It's called Daybreak. Let's see. And it's funny because this actually I got this. This is one of the first pickups Uh, I ever got at a Dollar Tree. I got this series there, and I'll tell you what year it came out in. Uh, let's see. Let's see. Oh boy. I didn't know that. Um, let's see. Where is it? There it is. Yeah, it came out in 2006. It was a TV series that came out on ABC on Tuesdays, and it didn't do very well. It just crashed and burned. All right, I am looking to see who our guest is here, so let's go get him. Is this director? This is film director Rich Ragsdale.
Howdy.
Good evening, sir.
How's it
How
going?
are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Not not bad. We're just talking a little bit about. I'm thinking about starting when you have a YouTube channel, you got to keep something. You want to keep things going. Keep different things going. My interview series is really sparkling, so I'm not going to have to worry about that. But I'm thinking about doing something else to add. Maybe get people to come over to the channel a little bit more. And and so I was thinking about doing a deep dive on like maybe single season series,
Hmm.
shows that only lasted a year.
Yeah.
And I was thinking about doing something like that, just what could have been, what went wrong. Most of the time, a lot of shows, nothing really went wrong. It's just that the executives at the networks were had very fast hooks.
Yeah.
I mean, I think what really gets me now today, in because I go to the library, right? I go every week, and so I have to kill about an hour for the doors open, and so I read the TV guide, and on the TV guide, you open it up, and they have the Nielsen ranking, the Nielsen ratings.
Mhm.
You look at that today, and then you think about some of the shows that got canceled,
Oh, yeah.
and you go like, holy crow, if they were around today, they'd be massive hits with the numbers they had.
Yeah.
You know, now a show is like big if it has like a six, like a 6.1, 6.2 rating. It's like that would get your ass canceled way back in the day, but now that's considered a hit.
Yeah.
Hi, bud. How are you, sir? Uh, we're talking to film director Rich Ragsdale today. Uh, I was looking at that video you sent me,
Yeah.
and I was looking at your database page, and you and I have actually worked with a few people together.
Oh,
Uh,
all right.
yeah, you did a video for 311,
I did.
and I did a couple of shows with those guys in another life.
Oh,
I was a
all
ta-
right.
yeah, I was a talent buyer in California.
Oh, cool.
So yeah, it was like when I saw that, I'm like, oh, that's cool as hell right there.
Yeah. Yeah. Those
Uh,
guys were nice. I really liked working with those guys.
yeah, they were nice guys. They were really nice guys. I enjoyed working with them too. Very professional, great sounding band.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. Um, the one thing I was really impressed with too with you was that you're a film composer as well, which
Yeah.
I know that we're going to be talking about that because that is something I don't really get a chance to get into that much, and I've interviewed one dedicated. That's what he did, was just a composer, and
Mhm.
super talented guy too, super talented. And I've always had so much respect for that, for film composers, because that's not easy.
No, it's it's a great gig though.
Yeah, yeah. Um, I was, let's see if we'll get. I want to talk just a little bit more. See if we get a few more heads to show up. Um, yeah, we've had a pretty good week, so it seems like our little community here has blown up as far as people doing live streams and doing shows and all that other stuff. And
Great.
so sometimes it takes a couple minutes for them to get in. Uh, so how was your day today?
Good. It was busy. I'm actually doing a treatment to try and get another music video right now. So, for a pretty big band. So,
Yeah, I looked at that. I looked at that young lady you mentioned, Maisie K,
yeah.
and I looked, and she's got a nice little following here on Instagram, but I don't think she's quite out of reach. So I said that I was talking to you today, and I'm going to send her a message afterwards and see if she'd be interested in talking. Um,
Yeah.
uh, yeah, I don't know. Might be a little too late. I mean, as far as that goes, I mean, she especially she got picked up. Was she on a label when you did that interview, did that video, or was that just her?
It's kind of interesting. I mean, she's on a label, or I think her music is distributed through a label, but she's basically an independent artist as far as I can tell. You know, there is, like she has a couple of different managers that sort of manage different parts of her career. And I just kind of happened on this. My rep sent me a thing where she wanted to do a video that was kind of like, that movie Underworld. So, like vampires and guns and,
Right.
fighting and stuff. And she had a basic idea of what she wanted, and I had to kind of figure out how to turn it into a thing that would sort of make sense and that you could fit enough story into like 3.5 minutes.
I actually, what I got out of that, I sort of got Tarantino out of it.
Awesome. Well, I'll take it.
Yeah. Have you ever watched Reservoir Dogs?
Oh yeah, of course. Yeah. Like a dozen times probably.
So you remember every time that they would go back to Tim Roth, right? Every time he was, he got shot in the stomach, right?
Yeah.
Well, every time they went over there, his puddle got bigger and bigger and bigger throughout the movie.
Yeah.
And when she's laying there. First, it's a small puddle of blood, and it gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And I'm like, oh, that's very Tarantino-like. I like it.
Nice. Yeah, it was, I hadn't thought about it in those terms, but because I was just trying to, it's like that whole beginning of the video is done almost like very montagey, but it uses that long descending crane shot to sort of tie it all together so I can get away with cutting really fast between the little story beats.
Now for a shoot something like that, because you have her laying down in the blood. Now, do singers or artists like that, do they wear wigs to protect their natural hair from that, or did she just get down and dirty and then she wouldn't clean herself up afterwards?
No, actually, what was funny was that the stylist for the shoot, which was like her person, had pulled some costumes that we couldn't get dirty. And I was like, well, we're going to get blood all over it. It's like right here in the so because it was a very expensive outfit. So we actually built a little thing on set. It's like these little quarter apple boxes, let's see. Sorry, I'm going backwards here. Yeah. So little quarter apple boxes. So she's lifted about 2 or 3 inches up off the ground. And so, but it's just an optical illusion because we're like the camera's looking straight down, and we had sort of spread her hair out on the ground so that it wouldn't get too bloody. So, but the idea is the blood's coming from this neck wound, but it actually kind of makes for like an interesting sort of stylized moment anyway. So it turned out well. And I managed not to get blood on the outfit.
Yeah, I was just curious how they did that, because I'm looking straight down and going like, how is she? Is that really her hair, or does she have it in a wig? so she wouldn't get the fake blood all over it.
No, we just lifted her up off the ground so there was enough space that it wouldn't touch her outfit. And yeah, you know, I don't know if we got any in her hair or not. I don't really, I don't think so, because we, you know, it was a very intense shoot day, so we had to shoot a lot of stuff. So
yeah, is it true that most music videos are pretty much shot in a day, or in a one day, maybe two at the most?
Yeah, almost always. But, you know, oddly, this video, we got 3 days. We had a pretty good budget on it, so we got to shoot for 3 days, and it turned out well. So, you know, and if your listeners want to watch it, it's called Karma is a Bitch Like You by Maisie K. So it's on YouTube. So
yeah, I'll put a link to that video in the description box so people can go over and take a look at your work.
Yeah.
I was just telling our friend Echo, he's in the chat here. I was talking to him about the bad bad news, good news day, and you know, we're sort of going with the good news aspect of it. Like,
nice.
Yeah, I think so too. I mean, it's like the way I look at it, you know, whether it be 5 copies, 10 copies, 15 copies, you know, if it's sold out, it's sold out. You know.
Yeah.
So there's a store in Michigan that has sold out of their allotment of your movie. So that's a good thing.
I like it.
Yeah, I you know, you know what, I just said what I'll do is after the show's over with, I'll go to Walmart.com and I'll take a look and see what they got. See if they got it on sale.
Yeah.
I know it was a retail for $12.96. I might try to find it a little bit lower than that.
Yeah.
I'm on a budget. But I definitely want to see the movie. That's yeah. I like, you and I were talking. I really like the cast. The cast is definitely one to pay attention to.
Yeah.
So I guess we'll circle back before we talk about the long night and more music, and I definitely want to hype up the movie that we both love so much, because that was so cool for me when we did our pre-show, because I love that movie so much, and to get a chance to talk about it is really cool. But where were you born and raised at? Where were you born and raised at?
Well, I was born in Queens, New York, but I was actually raised in Nashville, Tennessee. So I grew up in the South. I pretty much hail from Tennessee. I mean, the majority of my formative years were spent there. So yeah, so I'm a Southern boy for the most part.
Now, how old were you when you moved from New York down to Tennessee?
Oh, it was probably like 3 or 4 or something like that. So pretty young, you know.
Have you always been, well, now you're out in California, so how long were you in Tennessee for?
For the most part, you know, until I graduated high school. We lived in Texas for a little bit too, but then we moved back to Nashville. So I kind of, you know, it was all Southern. So, and then I left Tennessee to go to college in Boston. So,
Boston College or Boston University?
No, I went to Berklee School of Music.
Okay. When you were growing up, I mean, you know, in those formative years, what came first for you? Music, writing, or film?
Oh, music. You know, I kind of became a filmmaker by accident, and that happened much later in my career. But I just always loved music, wanted to play music. And when I was a kid in Nashville, I played in a bunch of like local bands, and I went off and then studied like classical guitar at Middle Tennessee State University. Then I decided I wanted to start writing music and composing. So that's when I transferred to Berklee College of Music. I got in and you know, started studying film scoring.
I admire that so much, because I mean, I'm one of those people that absolutely 100% positively believes that a lot of movies are made or broken on their score.
Oh, yeah.
Greetings, Al. Our good friend Al Lucard, my co-pilot on my other show, is here saying hello. Can you see the chat where you're at, Rich?
I cannot. I do not see the chat.
I will keep us up with it. Our good friend Al is saying hello to you and me both. And Al's I have a Sunday night show with Al. We call the Midnight Society. We run it for 2 hours on Sunday nights, and right now right now he's on vacation, so we were doing a deep dive into Friday the 13th.
Nice.
I've never done that before. I've never done a deep dive like that, and for a whole franchise. So we've been having a hell of a good time with it. And then he went on vacation. Unfortunately, that got interrupted. But so it's so much fun because it's like, what am I going to cover when my buddy's gone? I gotta come up with something that people want to listen to. And so I went with Fist of Legend with Jet Li, right?
Yeah.
So at first I'm going, when I saw when it came out, I'm going like, oh my god, because it ended and it was just not. I didn't think it was very well attended. So I'm just sitting there going like, holy shit, that was a misfire. And all of a sudden, like the last couple of days, it just caught fire, and it's like, oh, okay, so people do like Jet Li. Oh, thank God. We're covering a movie called Saint Maud this Sunday.
Oh, I love that movie.
Oh, hell yeah.
Oh man, that's one of my favorite more recent horror films. That movie blew my mind, actually. I was so enamored with that movie.
Yeah, you know what? If you like that movie, I got another one for you that will just totally blow your socks off. And it's called A Dark Song.
A Dark Song? No, I don't know that one.
It came out on IFC Midnight, and it was directed by a first-time director named Liam Gavin. And you watch that and come talk to me. Tell me what you think. I'm serious. I'd love to know what you think of that movie, because
Dark Song.
That's the best movie I've seen the last 10, 15 years.
I'm going to put that in my list here.
Oh my gosh, how big's your list?
I mean, my list is massive. I mean, I'll be dead before I get through all the movies I want to watch, but it's okay. It's nice to have
they're both agreeing that Jet Li is legend. He is, for sure. So now you're in Boston. Now you're doing film composing. What led you to? I mean, most young people want to do rock and roll. Not very many, say, yeah, I want to compose music for film. So, what led you to that pathway?
Well, it's kind of interesting because I was always kind of a weird kid when it came to music. I mean, I played in local rock bands and stuff, and I liked a lot of the music that was popular when I was a kid. But at the same time, I always had had this real eclectic taste in music. I liked classical music. My dad had a bunch of classical records. I just kind of steal them and listen to them on my own. And, I discovered Cab Calloway or whatever it was, Frank Zappa, all this kind of stuff that drove all my friends nuts. They hated it, but I couldn't help myself. I just loved all this weird, or not weird, but just eclectic, different kinds of music. And in Nashville, you grow up around a lot of country music and roots music. So you get that in your soul too. But, I just never wanted to just do one kind of music. And so it seemed like film composing was a place where you could do that, where you could try to do different styles of music and kind of get away with it, So I started studying composition. It was just kind of like a organic thing. One of the things that happened to me was when I was just starting college, I got a job scoring a couple of local TV commercials. And so I was just like, man, this is fun. And so that led to wanting to study it seriously, because I'm sure if I were to hear it now, I'd think they were just terrible. But, it was my first attempt at doing that kind of thing.
Now, were there any composers that stayed with you growing up? I mean, again, it's not exactly, hey, who's your favorite band? Oh man, that John Williams cat, he's hella cool. You know, not too many guys do that at a young age. But was there any one composer that stood out for you?
Well, I mean, of course, like a lot of kids my age, like John Williams really struck me because, like, he was doing music for movies, all the Star Wars movies and Raiders of the Lost Ark and stuff. And so that was stuff that kind of, really I just loved because I loved those movies. And then I also, as a kid, like my dad was really into Alfred Hitchcock. So I got familiar with a lot of Bernard Herrmann's scores, and I mean, he's probably the single best film composer that there ever was. So, as a kid, those were the film composers I was sort of aware of. And then, of course, Danny Elfman sort of broke onto the scene, and I
Yeah.
really loved his music at the time. Not that I don't now, but I mean, it was very. He started really, really strong with those like Tim Burton scores and stuff. I mean, they were really, really good. So, and then, as you get more into it, you get more nuanced and you learn all the other composers. And Jerry Goldsmith was another one I really loved.
That's great. Yeah. I was telling this I had a young lady on last week. She also does composing, but she does other music well as well. But we were talking about film composers, and when I grew up, my favorite composer was James Horner.
Oh, great. Yeah.
I loved his music,
Okay.
and but the more I listened to it, the more I realized that um, he plagiarized himself shamelessly.
Oh, yeah. Well, I
I
mean,
mean,
there's some guys that kind of have a thing they do. Jerry Goldsmith and John Williams are sort of more versatile, at least in the orchestral world, and Bernard Herrmann especially. But like you think about like a lot of the early Danny Elfman stuff, it's all kind of in the same ballpark, even though it's great. But you kind of you recognize it because he sort of does a similar thing. And James Horner was maybe the same way to a certain extent.
to a large extent, because I mean, seriously, yeah, you go to Spotify and
Mhm.
type in his name and then put a sample of his music down. I'm telling you, you could play it all, and you could not guess which movie it came from. You would guess it all. It came from every movie. It was
Yeah,
like you sit there and say, "Oh, that's the perfect storm." No, uh, that's Troy. No,
yeah.
because it's all sounds the same. And I don't know. It's like once I heard it like that, I was like, wow. I mean, he just. I mean, and the thing with it was, he just did it shamelessly. He's
Mm.
just like, I'm just lifting the whole thing from this movie and moving it here. It's like, damn, okay, if that's what it takes. Um, I like Hans Zimmer now. Hans Zimmer does some amazing stuff.
And he's kind of the sound of right now. I mean, he's probably. I mean, he's easily the biggest film composer working. Um,
Score for Interstellar is absolutely awesome.
yeah, I mean, he's got a lot of iconic scores.
It
So
really does. I mean, I'm sort of surprised he's not being mentioned now because he really could be. He really should be mentioned in the truly greats. Um, what's the score maker for the spaghetti westerns?
Ennio
Um,
Morricone. Oh yeah, well like there's like if you start talking about like foreign films, you get like Ennio Morricone and Nino Rota too, who did all the Fellini scores. And those two are really two of my very favorite composers for film. And if you throw Bernard Herrmann in there,
yeah,
um,
but
there's
there's some really
oh, I'm sorry.
I mean, there's some really dynamic scores. Like Henry Manfredi when he did the score for Friday the 13th. We
Yeah,
talked about his music. I mean, horror has really come up with some really unique scores.
yeah,
Like a dark song, you'll hear that. You'll hear that the score to that movie. That will set up a tent in the back of your head, and it'll stay there. Um, it follows. That
yeah.
score was absolutely
That was cool.
that made the whole movie. I
Yeah,
mean, and the thing is, though, it's not very often where he's sitting at the edge of your seat. Especially as you get older. But for It Follows, I mean, I'm sitting there like here I am jaded. Okay, I got another horror movie on. Here I am at the start of the film, Rich. I started the film. I'm watching it, and by the end of the film, I'm like this. Like now, and then it has that jump scares, and I'm like, I'm jumping because it's like, damn, that spooked the hell out of me. But it was the music that did it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's like that kind of dark wave sound, that kind of like John Carpenter Goblin kind of sound is kind of really come back, that they sort of use in that movie, the synthesizers and the very 80s kind of vibe. So that's super popular now.
Now, when you were in Berkeley, what was what? Hi, Katie. How are you? When you were in Berkeley, I mean, did you get together with your other friends and did you discuss favorite scores and
Yeah.
you know, yeah.
Yeah.
Who was mentioned most among that?
Well,
Probably
like,
John.
like I was at Berkeley in the 90s. So, Danny Elfman was probably the most popular composer, and John Williams. I mean, of the new guys at the time, now he's kind of like old school, but at the time when I was, in my youth, it was, Danny Elfman was very popular. Everybody liked him a lot. And of course, John Williams and Jerry Goldsmith were also both still working, and both, John Williams still around, still working, but hugely popular composers. Those were probably the guys that got mentioned the most. And then, like some of us that liked older movies, we would really like lean into Bernard Herrmann and some of those Ennio Morricone and stuff.
Yeah, were you aware of who Danny Elfman was in Oingo Boingo, or was he introduced to you as a composer?
Well, I mean, I knew Oingo Boingo's music, but I guess I didn't put two and two together at first, and it was such a shock, because usually, honestly, a lot of times rock stars don't make the best composers because they, have this thing they do, which is like rock and roll, and it's very hard for them to kind of break out of it. But Danny Elfman always, Oingo Boingo had a very theatrical component, and I think that helped a lot, So, and he was, he wears his influences on his sleeve in those early music. It's very like kind of Raymond Scott and Kurt Weill and Carl Stalling, kind of cartoon music influenced, as well as being, so it was like kind of wacky and fun, but the melodic content had that kind of vibe. But I definitely, I like Oingo Boingo just fine, but I've always preferred his film music,
Yeah, I can see that. I mean, I'm cool with either one. I mean, I was introduced to him more as Oingo Boingo, but then when I remember sitting in the seats and watching the first Spider-Man movie come up and realized that it was like, hey, that's Danny Elfman, and then then became aware of the other movies, the Batman and Beetlejuice and what have you, but Spider-Man was was the one that really I felt like put him out there, like this is what he's doing now, and he did a really nice job.
Yeah, I mean, he's great. And, his score for Edward Scissorhands is my favorite of his scores. I think it's really beautiful.
Who do you think has influenced you the most of these composers, both current and the past? I mean, would you say there's any that influenced you at all?
I mean, I don't know, when it came to like I said, I don't write a lot of music anymore because I'm mostly a director, but I don't know. I mean, I love all sorts of music, so I was influenced by lots of different things. And one of the things I discovered in music school, I don't want to get too boring and technical with this kind of stuff, but it's like there were these kind of Eastern European composers from like the 60s and 70s that really, affected me. And it was like composers like Penderecki and Ligeti and Lutoslawski and stuff. And they would write this music. Actually, you can hear it. A lot of it's in like The Shining and 2001 and The Exorcist. It's this very weird orchestral stuff. that where you don't write like regular notes, you use all this graphic notation. It's very strange, almost like sound effects music. And I really loved it. I thought it was wacky and weird and disturbing and cool. And I loved all those movies like 2001 and The Shining and that kind of stuff. So once I figured out how to write music like that, they really influenced me.
That's good to hear, because one of the people we have in our chat is a huge Kubrick fan.
Oh,
That's his title was Kubrick Lover 1972. So you talking about Kubrick, I'm sure, is making him very happy right now. Uh, uh, now you mentioned you started doing you are a film director now. Uh, just a couple more questions about the music aspect, because it is important.
yeah.
Um, I, Now, what's the biggest difference for you between doing a film composing for a film versus doing, say, a feature film, a short film, or a television series? How do you approach each one?
As a composer, you mean?
Composer.
Well, it's funny because I've done all of those things, and the bulk of my career as a composer was doing television, and I did a lot of sitcoms, and it's a very different beast because you would write a lot of music in advance, and then you build up this big library of music that you've written. That's the kind of the sound of the show, and then you have a music editor who goes in and kind of plugs a lot of that music in. And then every time, if there's ever, every episode usually has some scene specific music that you have to write, whether it's either dramatic or they go to a bar and they want it to be like George Thorogood music playing or something, so you would write new music every week, but the bulk of all the transitions and stuff were kind of library stuff that you would create in advance. So that was how that worked. And then movies are the exact opposite, where it's like the movie's done. They usually come to you. If not, the picture's not locked, it's probably pretty close. You come in and you're writing to picture, and it's a much more involved process. It's much more difficult. And short films are kind of the same thing. It's just not as long. And if you're doing a feature, you want to kind of develop thematic material that will build across the course of the film. And kind of you see it might have a theme, and it would develop and get bigger or smaller based on what happens. And another thing that I actually did a lot of was in my career as a composer was video games. I did all the Alien versus Predator video games in the early days.
Wow.
So and that was a lot of fun to do. It was also challenging. So
yeah, because you were able to bring your own, you're making that was all original music.
Yes, it was all original music. But the thing is, it was kind of weird because it's like, at that point, when I first started doing those games, there had been about 4 Alien movies and I think 2 Predator movies. And so they would be, you had to create music that reminded people of those films, but you had a lot of freedom to do cool stuff. So you just had to kind of keep it in that universe, like snare drums for the Marines and, big brass and the percussion for the Predator and stuff, but you had a real wide berth to work in. It was a really actually a lot of fun and really rewarding kind of thing to do. So
how did you get into music videos for bands? Was were you doing that side by side with your film, and were you doing that with short films and your TV shows? Did you branch out and start doing music videos for artists?
No, what happened was, like, when I was doing TV, you would get, at the time I was doing television, I was doing a lot of sitcoms, and at the end of every season, you usually had the summers off. The shows would go on hiatus. So I started studying like photography and just kind of teaching myself like different kind of rudimentary filmmaking techniques just as a hobby, because I loved it so much. And, a guy that I worked with, he wanted to try and get this job scoring this show. So he asked me to actually make a short film to his music. It's kind of the reverse of film scoring. It's like he gave me his music, and then I made this short film to go with it, and he used it to present to try and get the job. And he didn't get the job. So I had this like little short film I had made. I didn't know what to do with it. I started sending it out to film festivals just kind of on a lark. And it won a bunch of awards, and it screened with some cool movies and stuff. And I was just like, oh man, this is a lot of fun. And then my brother around the same time was starting a production company with another producer. And, they just kind of rooked me into, working with them. And I really enjoyed doing it. So, and then music videos just are a kind of logical extension of that. It's like commercials and music videos are kind of short turnaround jobs where you can make money and build your chops.
I guess that's really what's really important. I mean, I'm looking at your database page right now, and you've got some really good places to build chops at. I mean, you worked on some great series, The King of Queens. I mean, Ladies Man. You worked on the rerun show. I mean, there's some, according to Jim with Jim Belushi. I mean, those are all really cool shows to work at. Yeah. And of course, the one I'm looking at right now, and we'll talk about if you don't mind, because I really like to know how you approach this. But you did an episode of Masters of Horror.
Yeah.
The Black Cat.
Yeah.
Now, was this your first experience with horror movies at this time?
No, I'd done a couple of indie horror movies, done the score for them and stuff, but this was like this was like a great gig, because it was also the director of that episode was Stuart Gordon, of Reanimator fame. And he was actually kind of a mentor to me. I had done some music for a film he had done called Edmund, which was a William Macy movie based on a David Mamet play. And he actually edited the film at my place. They used my system. I had a system set up at the time for editing, and they, they were on a tight budget. And so I was like, well, you guys can just cut at my house. So I saw Stuart almost every day for about a year. Wow. And or every weekday, for about a year. And I was doing music for it. And then he got this episode. He actually did 2 episodes of Masters of Horror. And the first one he did with Richard Band did the music, who had done the Reanimator music and all that.
For the Witch King.
Yeah, the Lovecraft thing. Dreams in the Witch House, I think, is what it was called. And then he wanted to do this Edgar Allan Poe thing, and he knew that. I mean, I like old timey music, and I collect a lot of weird instruments, and so he was like, "Why don't you score this whole episode?" And it was a lot of fun. And Stuart, I learned a lot from working with Stuart. He was, was a great guy, and he was a good friend. So.
Yeah, he's missed. I loved Reanimator. Reanimator was, for many years, the first Reanimator was my favorite horror film.
Yeah.
I mean, I've always been, Jeffrey Combs was just the shit. Still is. And,
he played Edgar Allan Poe in that episode.
Yeah.
So
he's a fantastic actor. They work together a lot.
Oh yeah.
I watched one movie I found just off a lark, and I picked it up and I watched it. It was really cool. It was a movie he did called Dagon, and that was really good, real good, trippy ending. Mr. Bones, hello, sir.
The funny thing about like Dagon and Reanimator, all those, they're all like Lovecraft stories. And Stuart told me, he's like, the great thing about Lovecraft and by extension Edgar Allan Poe is that they're public domain, and they're great stories, and they're famous, and they have fans. And so it's like, if you adapt these, you already have a built-in fan base,
and you don't have to pay for it.
Exactly. And it's the source material is free, but it's also intellectual property that you can use, that people know and love. So
what was your well, you mentioned he had done 2 other horror films before that. how was what was the very first feature film that you did?
Geez, I don't even remember, honestly. I mean, I scored a lot of like little indie movies and stuff. And there's some movies that I like contributed music to. I didn't necessarily write the whole score, but like I wrote a bunch of like heavy metal music for this movie called like Eight-Legged Freaks. That was a big, that was probably the first time I ever heard my music on a big screen.
Okay.
So, it was just, but most of the movies I ended up scoring were smaller kind of independent films because I was kind of segueing out of music and into directing. And so I still would do music on occasion, especially if it was like if Stuart Gordon called me, it was like, I mean, I'd do whatever he wanted, so it's like, that was a real thrill and it was a lot of fun to do.
But you must be it must be pretty intense though, because here you are, you're directing a film and you're getting it done, you're handing it over, to the person who's going to be scoring your movie, and you're going like, now don't mess this up because I'm going to be listening to this after as soon as you're done. Because come on, you gotta be knowing when you're directing, right? When you're just sitting there watching dailies come back at you.
Yeah.
I just know you're just sitting there like this, going like, what music will I put with this? You
Yeah.
know, is that right? I mean, do you think about it? Like, if I was scoring this movie, well, this is what I would do with it.
Well, it's funny, because with my own stuff, I almost always score it, with the exception of The Long Night. I did not score my new movie. I hired a friend of mine to write the music. It was just I didn't have much gas left in the tank when I was finishing the movie up, and she was gracious enough to do it.
She, who was your friend?
Sherry Chung. And she's a great composer. She's doing a lot of TV right now. She does like the new Kung Fu TV show, and she does a lot of the DC DC superhero-y kind of stuff for the television stuff, like the Star Girl and all that stuff.
That's very cool of you to do that. I mean, women composers, they've had a hell of a time breaking through that ceiling.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like, it's even today, it's really, really rough. I mean, I'm always looking to see who does the scores, and even today, I rarely see a woman getting full credit for a score.
Yeah, I have a couple of friends that are female composers that are just great, and a few of them are quite successful, actually. So Sherry is, of course, blowing up. I mean, she's just on fire right now. So I asked her to do it in the middle of COVID. She just didn't have anything to do, and we're good friends. And and I think she'd never done a horror movie. So I think she wanted to try it, and she really killed it, man. I mean, she just knocked it out of the park. She did when you watch the film, you'll see how good her score is. You may hate the movie, but you can't hate the score,
No, you can't hate a movie either.
Kidding.
I think a score really is 50% of any movie. It truly is 50%.
Especially with horror movies, the score is just everything,
It really is. It sets you in the mood. I watched some movies recently, and it's just like, oh my gosh, the sound that comes out is just so tinny. It's so tiny. It's like, and some of it has synthesizers in it, and I'm like, why? I maybe that's all they had. Maybe that's all the budget they had for that. But it's like, you just, you're basically shooting yourself in the foot. It's almost like, okay, maybe you don't have quite enough money right now for that, but holy crow, wait a couple of months until you can pick up a little bit more, and then go ahead and put a real score in, because why bust your ass, right? I mean, you've seen this.
Yeah.
You bust your ass on this, and then you come up there and you get this weak ass score, and it's just like, it takes you out of it. Here you are, you're a veteran, a director, you've been around music most of your life. And when it's something not very good when it takes someone like yourself out of the movie,
For sure. 100%.
yeah, Uh, so some of the but you did music videos for this. I mean, you worked with a lot of bands.
Yeah.
Um, so how does that happen? How are directors hired for music videos?
Well, I have an agent, and so the label or the you know the they have people specifically that work for labels. They're the kind of the gatekeepers, and like say a band like 311, or like we want to do a video for this song, and they will reach out to the agents, the reps for directors, and they will be like, so they'll send Lori is my rep, and they send her sort of like the 311 song, and then they'll be like, who do you have that you think would do a good job? And it usually goes out to about, I mean, it depends on how big the band is, but it can go out to as few as 4 or 5 directors, and sometimes as dozens. And then you listen to the song, and they will sometimes send you a creative brief, kind of be like, we like this idea, we like that idea, we want to try and do something like this. And you have to write an idea based on all these parameters, and sort of like they usually tell you about what they have for the budget. And then you try to think of the most creative thing you can in that, within all those strictures. And then you send a treatment back, and then they go through all the treatments, and hopefully they find one they like, and they pick that director, and you go.
I was just wondering if it was just like if it was just like a pool, like a talent pool, like, I got 30 directors here that, that all could do it, I mean, it may sound really simple, but I was just curious. It's like, do they just reach in and grab your name out and go like, okay, you're, and basically almost assign it to you, like, here you go.
No, it's not like that at all. I mean, you have to work to get the job. You have to be like, this is my vision for the song, and you come up with sometimes they're very open. They're like, we're open to whatever, which is always hard because, you don't know what they like and what they're looking for really. But
they're open to it until the first demo, and they're like, oh, they're not feeling that.
Yeah. So, it can be very hard. Sometimes it's very much a moving target. I mean, I've written way more treatments than I have directed music videos, and but that's the name of the game. And once you get it, you try to get videos with a decent budget so that you can do a cool video. Like a lot of times the bands I like the most, they're not big bands, so they don't have big budgets to do videos. And so if I take the job, it's like you got to really scrimp and
what's the average budget for versus a label video versus a non-label video?
I mean, some videos like are just like, we have like, like an indie band will be like, we have $5 grand, 10 grand, a label band might be like, we have 150 grand, or 45 grand, or it just depends on the band and what they want to spend. And then sometimes they tell you like, oh, this is the budget. And then you start showing them other options once you get hired, like, oh, well, we could shoot here, but it's out of our budget. And they'll be like, oh, all right. And they'll kick the budget up a little bit. But that's pretty rare. That usually, I mean, we're very good. My brother and I work together. We have a production company. We're pretty good on coming in on budget. So you just learn to be resourceful when the budgets are small. And then, if they're big, then you get to do something cool.
Is your brother your Bruce Campbell?
My Bruce Campbell. My brother is he's my producer. So he's a very talented guy. He's actually quite a good actor too. He hasn't done a ton of acting, but the stuff he's done is great. He's in The Long Night actually for.
Yeah, I saw him in some of your things. I'm going like, oh, okay, it must be like his lucky charm, He's like Sam Raimi. He always puts his brother in all his movies,
Oh yeah. And Ron Howard does the same thing.
Right.
Well, yeah. Well, we have a short film I think you would love called The Loop that Kev actually is like the lead bad guy. It's very 80s. It's like a throwback it's like a throwback to all of the 80s VHS horror movie type things, so if you get a chance, check out The Loop.
Is it on the tube?
It's on YouTube. Yeah, if you type in, I mean, The Loop is a pretty common name, so if you type in The Loop and then type my last name, like Ragsdale, Screamfest put it on their channel.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. Or I can send you a link when we're done, and you can post.
Do you have a YouTube channel?
I do not. I mean, there was one I put up like 100 years ago, but it's not good. It's all my earliest of work, and I forgot I need to just take it down. But yeah, I would say, I mean, we have a website. If you go to knr-productions.com, it has a lot of our better work on there. Like stuff, we've done a lot of work with like Sean Lennon, John Lennon's son and stuff like that. So, we've got some cool stuff up there.
Let's talk a little bit about the transition from music to film. I mean, we know you did a couple of the indie horror films, but how did that happen? I mean, because especially for someone had you done any directing beforehand? Had you done any short films, or had they seen you doing music videos? Because a lot of music video directors, that's where they cut their teeth on music videos. Which are basically short films. You got like 3 to 8 to 10 minutes, which is basically what a good short film is. So it's basically the same thing. So did they find you from your music video work or your composing work, or were you did they say, hey, you know what, you seem to got a grasp on this, have you thought about doing this yourself? I mean,
yeah, I mean, it's interesting. It's hard to explain how it happened. I mean, it just was kind of an organic process, but I was doing, I just kind of segued slowly from composing into filmmaking with all the sort of things that happen with that, all the kind of, and it was just a kind of like a gradient, going from one thing to the other. And, I've done a couple of features now. They've all been independent, but the last two that I've done have been quite, like the one I did before this one, which was called Ghost House, which my brother was the primary producer on. It was just an idea we had, and we were like, let's make this movie. We hired a couple of writers to write a script, and we went over and shot it in Thailand. And we didn't have much money, but money goes pretty far. The dollar goes pretty far in Thailand, and they have these great crews. And it was really just a lot of fun. It was probably the biggest adventure of my life, shooting a movie in Thailand. It was crazy, and it was awesome.
It's really busy over there right now.
Yeah, it's nuts. I mean, there's always a ton of production going on over there because they have such for Southeast Asia. I mean, Bangkok is like the hub for filmmaking. They have these great crews. They have all the equipment. They have, and it's compared to shooting in the States, it's incredibly affordable. That said, we used every drop of resources we had over there. We pushed hard to get like really cool locations and, all of that stuff. So it was a blast. It was hard. It was very, very hard, because it's not like shooting a movie in the States where it's like, oh, you didn't quite make your day. It's okay. We'll start tomorrow. It's like in Thailand is because we moved locations almost every day. So if we didn't get every single shot done in a day, it's like you don't have a movie. It's like you have to get everything, and so there was just no room for error, and there was a ton of error because that's how movies are. It's just like things go wrong, and things are hard, and things don't work out the way you want them to, or people have a bad day, and so it was just incredibly stressful, but it was just super cool.
Let me ask you this: who's easier to talk to as far as direction goes, Is it easier to direct a band on a music video, or is it easier for you to direct actors in a movie?
Well, there's no one or the other. I mean, some bands are very much into making music videos, and they like to act, they like to play parts, they like to wear crazy costumes, they like to do all the fun stuff. And then there are other bands who make music videos because you kind of have to, and they sort of hate it. And those bands are kind of difficult, in that they just don't want to do anything, and you're trying to convince them to have energy or to do something. Sometimes they have to trust you too, because you do a lot of tricky stuff in a music video, and it's like, look, I know you might feel a little stupid doing this now, but it's going to look cool, just trust me. And then actors are kind of the same way. I mean, some actors are they take direction well, and they're really good at collaborating. And then there are other directors that are just kind of like, they do it the way they do it. And if you don't like it, you're screwed. It's just like, this is what you get. So I wouldn't say that, any one is any easier than the other. It's just, everything is its own thing.
Yeah, I'm surprised that in a sense, in a way, I'm sort of surprised that music videos are still being made. It seemed like for a while there, it was like a sort of like dying art.
Yeah.
It's a joke now. It's like, well, what's on MTV? Well, anything but videos.
Yeah. Well, that's what happened, was the bottom fell out of the music industry. And, when the internet sort of really blew up. And so bands weren't making money off of records anymore. And music videos were kind of dying out because MTV was turning to, programming as opposed to music videos, and programming that wasn't really about music anymore, like The Real World or Teen Mom or, The Challenge or whatever, these shows that have nothing to do with music. So, but then, YouTube came along and blew up. And, now in a weird sort of way, the budgets can sometimes be pretty small but bands need music videos maybe now almost more than ever, because it's so hard. There's so many bands out there. You got Spotify, and it's just like, how do you find a band? And so having a music video is, it's just like one of the only ways to kind of differentiate yourself. And also bands need content all the time. It's just like, you got to kind of be in everybody's face all the time. So we're kind of entering a new era of music videos, but because of the ubiquity of bands, I mean, there are more bands now, I think, than there have ever been.
Oh, sure.
And most of them are either independent or, not unsigned or, on small labels.
What's so good about, though, I mean, as far as this goes, I mean, as a musician, people who follow bands or whatnot, back in, your my day, back in the 90s, for me, everybody in the late 80s, 90s, it was all about getting signed. Everybody wants to get signed to a major label. That was the big key, catchphrase. We can put our sound out. We hope to get picked up by a major label. And because that way you get on the radio. The other thing was trying to get on the radio.
Yeah.
But now it's like, you won't play my music on your radio? Not a problem. Got Spotify here. I got, all sorts of, there's all sorts of avenues, got YouTube. I can do a video. Hell, I could just set up and play. I don't need to do a $100,000 video. I can just set up in my garage, hook it up and play live, and then put that on the tube, and, as far as that goes, and reach further. I mean, that's the beautiful thing about it. You don't have any cost necessarily. Like, you don't have to do a website anymore. Like before, it'd be like a website. Now you can just go straight to Instagram and sit there and say, hey, we put a new record out. If you want to buy it, here's our PayPal. And so you don't have to run websites. I'm a webmaster. I run 20 bands. They don't need that anymore. It's that's yeah.
Yeah,
Um,
it's definitely
so
not as important. It's like bands have like Instagram and Facebook pages sometimes, and then of course TikTok is everything for bands like that.
uh, yeah, oh, okay. I thought TikTok was only like a 30-second soundbite.
Well, I mean, TikTok are short videos, but people will have like, I mean, everybody is, all of these people are on it, all the big stars. And like sometimes they'll like, say, for example, the Maisie K video I just did, she'll just break it up into little bites, or she'll put captions on a couple of the scenes and stick it up as a TikTok. The idea being hopefully you watch that and then you go watch the video on
Buy the record
on YouTube. Yeah. Or buy the, she doesn't have a full record, so I think that it's like it would just be like buying the single on wherever people buy singles now.
Yeah, it's probably the only bad thing for independent artists is that they no longer. It's almost like the '50s all over again. Where band singers used to tour on 45s. That was the whole thing. They'd load up in a bus and drive around and get out there, and they have like 10 acts out there, and they each play their one big hit, maybe the B side, and then they back up and do it again. I mean, that sort of sucks. I like it's like, and what real other sucks too is the fact that a lot of these bands, they, a lot of singers, they don't, you don't even consider them a success until they actually put out their third or fourth record.
Yeah.
Now, because nobody does that anymore. It's so rare that a breaking artist can come out there and actually get 3, 4, 5, 6 albums like it used to be.
Yeah.
What's been your favorite band to work with? The director.
Well, like I did I've done a couple music videos for Sean Lennon, like I said, John Lennon's son, and then his girlfriend. He had a band with his girlfriend called Ghost of a Saber-Toothed Tiger, and I've continued to work a lot with his girlfriend on her. She has a band now called Uni. I've done a couple of videos with her, and I help her. She's also turning into a director. She directs a lot of her own videos, so I help her on those when she needs it. And she's just, so I like working with those two a lot. Let's see, who else we just, like when I was a little kid, a band I loved was Iron Maiden, and like the heavy metal band. And last year I did 2 videos for Adrian Smith, who is the guitar player for Iron Maiden. He has a solo project. And so I've known him for a little while, and his wife called us and was like, we want you to do some videos for Adrian. And it was a lot of fun. He's just he's such a super cool guy. And it's kind of like this like little sort of childhood wish fulfillment stuff, So sure. That was cool. I don't know. I mean, like a bunch of the bands I've done videos for have been cool. I mean, sometimes you do music videos for bands that you would never listen to their music, or artists, and sometimes it kind of shows. I mean, I haven't, like the Maisie K thing turned out well, and that's kind of a pop artist, but a lot of the pop artists, it's like I do well with weird bands or with like hard rock bands and stuff. I mean, the horror stuff plays into the hard rock stuff a lot, I don't know. I've done so many videos. It's hard to sort of think of who's my favorite.
Now we're getting comments about Iron Maiden. Says Iron Maiden, Fear of the Dark. Now I'm singing Fear of the Dark to himself. And then I put Eddie lives. Yeah, Eddie lives. Yeah. Okay.
Well, can I tell you that the very first time I got paid in my life for anything creative, I was in 7th grade. I used to draw. I mean, I still draw a lot, but as a kid, I was like the kid in class that drew all the time. And this guy came up to me and he's like, he goes, if I give you $20, will you draw Eddie for me? I was kind of like, sure. I didn't really know what he was talking about. And he brought this Iron Maiden record to school, like a big vinyl record. And I took it home and I drew the album cover for him, and he paid me $20. and I got to listen to the record, and that's how I, so that was the first time anybody ever paid me to do anything creative. So
and that's a good segue to your art. We'll talk a little bit about that too. Then we go back to we'll go back and talk a little bit about the longest night, the long night. Now, when did you pick up that skill? Was that, because was that something you picked up after you started doing music, or was that just something you picked up in school, or?
Yeah, I mean, as a kid, ever since I could hold a pencil or a crayon, I drew. I just loved to draw. And actually, as a young person, like a very young person, like prepubescent, I just always assumed I would either grow up and be like an animator or a comic book artist, because that's all I just loved cartoons and comic books when I was a little kid, and I didn't really become a musician until I was a teenager. So, but I never stopped drawing. I carry a sketchbook with me almost everywhere I go. I just draw all the time. Even like my girlfriend and I, every night we sit down and we have dinner and then we watch TV. That's kind of the end of the night ritual. And half the time when we're watching TV, if it's a show I'm not interested in, I'm just drawing. And, it's kind of weird. It's always just been this kind of thing I do for myself. I mean, I have hundreds of sketchbooks that are just filled with crazy drawings. And, I just recently started posting.
When did you start when did you start doing your political drawings? Because those are awesome.
not to offend anybody, but, I started doing political cartoons once Trump became president. I just was really bothered by that. And, I have a family that is very supportive. My whole family, my extended family, everyone's very, very supportive of each other. But at the same time, a lot of them got really sucked into the Trump thing. And so I thought, I would start doing these cartoons as a way to kind of reach them, because they can't help but be supportive. But at the same time, they didn't agree with me on the politics. So it was like, I started doing these Trump cartoons to kind of poke them and be like, make them maybe think about what's going on, and at least try to see it from my perspective. So, but then oddly, they started blowing up. Like some of them went really viral on social media, and it wasn't intentional. I didn't try. I wasn't doing these things for money or anything. It was just to kind of express myself and kind of reach a few people.
Sure.
So
yeah, no power to. I mean, people, my friends here, they know exactly where I stand on that, and they know that. And I've commented. Here is it's the least likely platform.
Yeah,
but I have no problem saying that. Trump can go straight to hell. I mean, they know how I stand. It's I don't hide that.
No, I mean, I don't think you should. I mean, look, I'm very open about where I am politically, and it's like, I don't even want to be political, but I just feel like now you don't have a choice. And it's like, but at the same, and I think that in a lot of ways it might have hurt the new movie. I mean, I know that a lot of people are aware of my cartoons and stuff, and they might have taken it out on my movie because they don't agree. They get pissed off. And it's
unfortunately, in horror, there are a lot of people in horror that are right wingers. I mean, they love the fact that it's sort of like a warning sign in a sense. It's like, look, I like a good horror film as well as anybody, right?
Yeah.
But you can always see it, man. They're always the one that they always want to see all the bloody kills and shit. It's like,
yeah,
dude, have you ever thought about going on a date with a live girl? And they're like, huh? What? Well,
I mean, the thing I would say to Trumpers, if even if they don't like my cartoons, is I still love you. I'm not like, like I said, a lot of the majority of the people in my family are very right wing, and I love them all. I just don't agree with them, and I think that that's a big problem we have right now, is that everybody kind of hates everybody. And it's like, no, just like we can get back to like disagreeing, but still being friends. And I'm teasing when I do these cartoons. I'm just teasing you guys. I'm not, it's like, it's not, I'm not trying to make anybody mad. I'm just trying to make people laugh,
Yeah. My friend's saying, if I could prove that. obviously, it's not very hard to prove it all. All you need to do is just listen to them talk.
Yeah.
You listen to them talk. You go around and listen to, go to like here on the tube. You just go to, you just sit on a few live streams, and you can catch which way they lean. And pretty much in horror, they always pretty much lean to the right. It's just it is what it is.
Well, and I have like friends, even like some of the horror journalists I know who are, I would say, they're on their Facebook page or their Instagram. They're very like, kind of pro-Trump and stuff, but they like me. I like them. We get along. And they kind of put all that stuff aside because the movies I make are not political. They're very, they're just fun horror movies, hopefully. And, but, they're just some people that can't help themselves as soon as they find out that, you don't support that stuff, then they just, they take it out on you. And it's unfortunate, but it's where we're at right now. So because I genuinely believe, it's just like if everybody, and the other, like when I made this movie, we shot in South Carolina. So the bulk of the crew, the local crew were, they were Southern, and I would say the bulk of them were very conservative. And I brought like my pinko liberal friends out from Los Angeles to make, my DP and all the people that worked on the film, and they're all very liberal. But we just didn't talk about it on set, and we all got along great, and we just kind of left all that stuff behind. It was just a hard movie to make. We had very few resources. So it was just, but, so like it just didn't become, we didn't talk about it much.
Oh, I can see why. Yeah. There's a time and a place to talk about it. You're making a film, you're making art, so yeah, it's not a chance to sit around the campfire and talk about it. So I get that.
But
then again, like you said, here you are in South Carolina, and the majority of your crew are right wing. It's just that's how they are.
Yes.
But they just happen to be also skilled operators. Good film crew. So I get it.
And they were all good people. Everybody was a good person. There were no people on the set that I didn't think were decent, whether they were liberal or conservative. Everybody was a good person. So it was just, we just didn't talk about it. And we easily could have, because people like are spoiling for a fight these days. But, I also knew that like, if that started, we would never finish this movie. So,
right. I like your art. I looked at Instagram. I was looking at all the pictures you have out there, and I was rolling. I was like, that guy's really talented. I love a good political cartoon. On either side, either side, there's some really sharp pins out there and some good observations. You can't just say one side good, one side bad. No, it's not like that, because I think political cartoonists are probably maybe truly the last bastion of an unfettered and unencumbered press.
Yeah.
They're the last.
Yeah.
Now because our press are all corporate owned. Yeah. They all have the hands shoved up straight up their ass, being told what to say and how to say it. I think political cartoonists are probably the last people, like I said, the last people standing, the last line of defense that sit there. They can put out their art, and they can go one way or the other and be beholden to no one.
Yeah. And like, look, I grew up, like I said, I grew up in a very conservative family, and my dad was very conservative, but he had a great sense of humor about it. And so I saw, he loved political cartoons. It was kind of my love for this stuff kind of came out of, being around him, and he could appreciate both as well, I think, so, I love doing them. It's like, I've kind of like, I sort of dialed it back a little bit because I knew the movie was coming out, and I already had enough people that were mad at me. I just thought I would like keep the water still.
So let's talk about Ghost House. You said that you went down to, you hired a couple of writers down. Did you and your brothers, did you guys storyboard it and go like, this is what we wanted, this is what I want to do and how to do it? And And how did you end up meeting Scout Taylor-Compton?
Well, so the origin of the movie Ghost House was that my brother's wife is from Thailand, and they'd had a child, and they went back to Thailand to bring the child to the rest of the family over there. And they invited my girlfriend and I to come with them. And when we got there, she had really bad jet lag, my girlfriend did. And I was trying to get her up and on schedule. And so I took her for a walk. We were staying in this little, just a little town outside near the beach. And we went for a walk in the jungle one day, just trying to get her on schedule. And we came across this place where the Thais, the locals, had thrown away all these ghost houses, which are these ghost houses or spirit houses are these shrines that they put up outside their houses so that, you know, you can leave offerings to ghosts and you know, sort of engender good feelings with the ghosts of your ancestors, or to keep bad ghosts out of your house. Everybody has one. I mean, like, there's not, I've never seen a house or a business in Thailand that doesn't have some sort of ghost house outside their place. So anyway, we came across this place where a bunch of Thai people, locals, had thrown away all their old ghost houses. So it was like this graveyard of ghost houses. My girlfriend and I, like dumb tourists, are like poking around, looking at them, taking little things out of them, taking pictures. And I was like, this is a really bad idea, but probably a great idea for a horror film. You know, tourists go to Thailand, mess with the wrong ghost house, and bad stuff happens. So the idea for the movie came out of like a personal experience and, you know, being around the culture. And then we hired a couple of writers to kind of flesh this idea out. And then we went to Thailand and made it. As far as how we met Scout, we have a friend who's a casting director, and we went to her. We were like, okay, we want to, you know, cast a female lead and a, you know, male lead, and here are our ideas. And we made a list of actors that we thought were cool and that we thought we could get for the budget that we had. And the top of our list for the actresses was Scout Compton, because we were fans of her from the Rob Zombie films. And we sat down to lunch with our casting director, and she looked at the list and she was like, oh, I know Scout. And she just called her right there and was like,
Oh,
and
wow.
Scout had been to Thailand, loves Thailand. So she just set up a meeting. We went and had coffee with Scout and was just like, you're awesome. Like, let's just make a movie, you know? And that's pretty much how it happened.
Isn't it like that?
Yeah.
Isn't it something like that? Just a single phone call, and you just sit there and have coffee and explain to your movie, explain how she, you know, her part into it. She probably has got a couple of ideas, and you give her now, after you cast somebody like that, you know, do you give them the whole script right away, or do you have to wait till after you sign a contract with her agent?
No, I mean, an actor is going to want to look at the script to decide whether or not they want to do the movie, you know? So, you know, it's like, you know, we showed her the script. I mean, we ended up meeting with a couple of other actresses just to kind of do due diligence. But once we met Scout, I think we were pretty much like, I think she's our girl, you know? And Scout read it. I think she dug it and wanted to go and make a movie in Thailand with us. And it was, so yeah, you know, it was a pretty quick process with Scout.
Who's distributed Ghost House? I mean, who ended up distributing it for you?
In the United States, we were distributed by a company named Vertical, distribution company. And then this company called The Exchange was our foreign sales company, and they did a killer job. I mean, they really sold the movie well. And
Vertical too. They're pretty out. They're pretty good. I mean, I have a lot of their films, so
yeah.
Of course, now it's harder to find for a lot of these films because, you know, before they put out, you know, 50,000 copies, hard copies, instead of all these stores. Yeah. Now they don't do that anymore. So finding them out in the wild is harder than ever.
Yeah, and we had a pretty decent DVD release on Ghost House, but we didn't get a Blu-ray, which I was really bummed about.
And then so for The Long Night, that's a strange and winding road, isn't it?
Yeah, it was a crazy situation how I got on that film.
So let's talk about that. How did you land with The Long Night? And reunited with Scout?
So I got a call from a producer I know, and I've known him for a long time. And he was like, "You want to come to South Carolina and make a movie?" I thought he was sort of kidding. And I was like, maybe, I don't, what's the movie? And he's like, I'll send you the script. And then I didn't hear anything. And then like about a week went by and I texted him. I was like, were you serious about that movie? And he goes, why, do you want to make one? I was like, well, yeah, I mean, if it's sure, why not? And so he sent me the script and he's like, you need to come out now. And so I had to sort of make this decision. Do I want to make this movie? And the script was kind of like, at this point, the script, people have been messing with it and it was kind of a mess. And so I was on the fence, but I went out to South Carolina and it turns out they had already had 2 directors on the film, the guy that had written the original script and then another director. And I ended up, out there and I said I would do the film, but they had to hire a couple of people. There was not much money left because, the film had been languishing for about a month. They had a crew that was waiting to work. They had actors kind of come and go that they had to do pay or play deals on, I think. I don't know. But, so like there was a lot of money had been spent and there wasn't a ton left. So I convinced them to hire my DP, get the camera package I needed, hire my costume designer, and hire a friend of mine to rewrite the script. And they agreed to all of those things. And I was like, all right, what the heck? We'll just try and make this as best we can, And so we just dove into it. I mean, I had to start shooting once I got to South Carolina. I had to start shooting in like maybe less than 2 weeks. It was really crazy.
Just take a minute. We are talking to film director Rich Ragsdale. He has a brand new film that came out on WellGO-USA called The Long Night, which stars Scout Taylor-Compton, Jeff Fahey. How do you say Nolan's name?
Nolan Funk and Deborah Carr Unger.
Deborah Carr Unger.
Yeah.
So we're glad you guys are coming in. We're going to start talking about the movie, the Long Night. It's out right now. You can pick up copies at the usual suspects, Walmart, Best Buy, a lot of .coms. There's copies on Walmart.com. There's copies on eBay, brand new copies, and also on Amazon. So. It's a good film. Everything I've heard about it, I've read about it. It's got me very, very curious. And so that's what we're talking with tonight. Stick around because this has been a really great interview, and we're not done with it yet. Oh no, we're not getting out of here until we talk about the movie we talked about yesterday, because that should be your goal. You gotta make the part 2 of that.
I mean, it's not my decision.
I was thinking maybe he can just write a script and maybe he can go ahead and make part 2. Because that's just me, a fan speaking, right?
Yeah,
sure. So as far as the Long Night, I mean, you had to go in there, and now I've heard of what do they call script doctors? I've heard of that's happened before, when, there's a script, not, go in there, if someone comes in there and they'll clean it up and fix it up or whatnot. But I've never heard of anybody coming in like you had. I mean, how many directors they went through? You went through 2, right?
Before me.
Before you.
Writer director who'd written the original script. And I sort of assumed that his script was good, because, I mean, he's a good director. He's a good writer. And he, they obviously greenlit the movie based on his script. So I just think that they're, I don't know why, but like in the interim, people, actors or whoever, people on set, they all felt like there were maybe things they wanted to try and fix. And when I got to set, there were actually, I think, 3 different versions of the script that they handed me. I just kind of picked the one I thought was in the best shape, and then sent it to Rob Shep, who was the writer, a friend of mine in Burbank, who just he took on the gig. You know, it was a thankless job. I mean, I don't think they paid him a ton of money, but he busted his ass, and he was rewriting the script.
Now, when you say a ton of money, what can you give us just a conservative?
No, I don't think that's probably not good form, but you know, it was.
No, not Pacific, not Pacific. But I'm just talking about a good script doctor. What does a script doctor usually get? I mean, you know,
it just depends on the project, of course. You know, I mean, there's some guys that, you know, the thing is, like, when you go see a Hollywood movie, there's usually a writer or two who are credited, but there's almost always, like, on a big tent pole kind of movie, there's probably been like 10 writers at some point. You know,
they all have to get paid, right?
Yeah, and they all get paid, and they get paid very well. That's why I don't think they mind that their name doesn't end up on the credits. It's usually the last guy that does the bulk of the work, you know.
It's almost truly is like you go to a doctor and you're like, you know, then they look at you and they say, I'll be back. I'm going to go talk to my colleague over here, and they consult. And then, you know, that's really basically what it was. It's, you know, they come back to you and okay, we're going to, you know, here's what we think, you know, and here's what we're going to do. I mean, yeah, that's just, I mean, if it's like a fireman, you know, like in baseball, what they call the guy who closes the game out. You know, when you want to win, you go grab that guy, you know, like Aroldis Chapman, and then you give him, and he solves it. You know, he goes down there and shuts it down. A good script doctor, I mean, to even know one, I think is probably really critical to a director, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, and Rob, I had met him. I had read a pilot that he had written that I thought was really, really good. And then, so my brother and I actually hired him to write the sequel to Ghost House. And he had just kind of finished that script when I got hired to do this movie. And so I called him and I was like, do you want to do this? And he was like, yeah, sure. You know, and so he ended up doing it. And like, look, man, I mean, he worked hard because he was working during the day on his regular job, and then at night writing. And he has a family and stuff. It's not an easy, you know, it was, I think, probably as stressful on him as it was on, you know, myself and the rest of the crew in South Carolina.
Sure. So once he firmed up the script and sent it back to you, then you got rolling, right?
Yeah, well, I mean, he firmed up the first act so he could get rolling, and then he was, like I said, he was rewriting as we were shooting the movie because, you know, he just didn't have enough time to do it beforehand. You know, they're just, you know, because we had to go into production so quickly. So there were days where we were like, you know, waiting for the next couple pages to come in so we could start scheduling, you know, stuff. And it was tough. I mean, there were you know, there were roles that needed to be cast, and so we were our schedule, just even scheduling this film was crazy because it was like we only have these pages to shoot, and you know, we don't have this actor for, you know, like say like Jeff Fahey's part. Jeff didn't get cast until maybe a week or two into production. So
oh, that's crazy.
It was just nuts, man. It was really, you know, my AD who does all the scheduling had a very unenviable job on this film, but he was super cool and very level-headed and just really took care of me in the project. We couldn't without it.
So is it safe to say, I mean, can we call you MacGyver? Because that sounds like some serious shit, Rich. I mean, seriously. Yeah. I'll take this part. I'll take half the script and a couple of storyboards and a snippet of sound, and I can make a movie out of it. It's like, damn, I don't know. I've never heard. I don't think I've ever talked to a director that's had to do what you just explained. I don't think I've done a lot of these. I've done almost 300 of them, and I've talked to a ton of directors. I've never heard anybody have to go through hell like you've had to.
Yeah, but I mean, it was like, look, you know, it sounds like hell, but in a way, it was fun, you know, because it was just like, it's like, here we go. It's like getting on the roller coaster without the seatbelt on. You know, it's just like, you know, we're just going to hang on for dear life and make this movie. And
yeah, well, you saw Final Destination 3. I mean, I don't think I want to go on that roller coaster ride. I mean, oh, how fun is this? Oh, look how falling.
It was cool too because, you know, the producers on the film were great. I mean, they let me do the things that I wanted to do technically, as long as I could do I could do these things within the budget, you know. So
I don't think they were going to argue about anything anymore. They're just like, you know what? We're just going to keep our mouth shut
yeah,
and pray, you know, because it's like you keep meddling in this, and you're not going to have anything to meddle with. Because like you're telling me yesterday how when you got there, the budget for the film was almost depleted, and you haven't even shot a single frame yet.
yes. And I mean, you know, I mean, there was obviously enough to finish the movie and to hire the actors and stuff, but nobody got rich on this movie. You know, I mean, it's just, we really, everybody worked on it, and it became like a very much a family kind of atmosphere on set. It was, everybody was like, everybody I worked with was great. You know, I have no complaints about my crew or my cast. It
Oh
was,
God, sounds like it sounds like to me like you had a top notch crew and cast. I mean,
yeah.
it's like
Well, it
yeah,
was,
I mean,
like I said, we didn't have a ton of money, but they found money in the budget to do certain things. So it's like, you know, I wanted Steadicam for some days, and you know that's usually a pretty big expense on a movie. So my UPM found a guy he had met on another project who was a young guy who wanted to become a Steadicam operator and was had his own Steadicam rig and stuff, and you know, but his main job was as a gaffer, and so, or as a grip rather, and so he came up on his days off and would bring the Steadicam. So we ended up having Steadicam for like 3 or 4 days. And it was just this way to kind of get this thing that maximizes your production value without, you know, breaking the bank. It's like we couldn't hire just a straight up Steadicam operator, um, you know, like a union Steadicam operator, because we couldn't afford it. But we found a guy that would do it for the budget, and he was great. And you know, he was young, he was game for anything. And so then when I knew I was going to have Steadicam, I planned these elaborate shots where we would do long single take shots where the camera moves through the house or follows. There's a Steadicam shot at the end of the movie where we follow Scout out of the woods, and you know, all through this whole thing. And it's very fun and it's cool. And you know, so that was, it was just kind of figuring out how to like maximize what we had.
sure, sure. How does Scout get on this project?
Well, you know, one of the producers on this film is a guy named Damon Hillen, who was a producer on Ghost House, and he knew that I had worked with. He knew that Scout and I were friends from Ghost House, and I think he had cast her in a couple of films since Ghost House. So he knew that she's a great actress, like totally reliable, and that like it would make me happy if we hired her because I already have this relationship with her and I trust her. And so he was like, "Why don't we get Scout to play the female lead?" And I was like, "Great." And we called her, and she was in England doing one of these horror convention things, and she agreed to do it. You know, she was like, "Yeah, sure." And she loves my DP, the same guy that shot Ghost House. And so I was like, "Come make a movie with me." And Gigi's my DP's name, Gigi Malavasi. And she agreed and hopped on a plane, flew straight from England to set. So, and, you know, got there about 4 or 5 days before we started shooting, you know.
Wow, that's crazy. You got the Midas touch, sir. I
Yeah.
mean,
It was
yeah.
like, you know, no, it's just luck, you know, really, you know.
So I mean, is it you know? Do you ever go out looking for to find your movies at stores to see if it's out there? Do you just go out there just to watch? You know, like, or have you ever been out there and people are you know, maybe they're standing in the movies and you just casually say, you know, I heard this movie's pretty good, and you hand them one of yours. Do you ever do that?
You know, yeah, a little bit. I mean, like, you know, when it screens in the States, you know, yeah, you go, oh, actually I went to, you know, when we had Ghost House, it did very well in Thailand. And my brother and I, you know, we flew over to Thailand for the premiere. And you know, we got to go and sit in theaters with Thai people watching our movie that we shot in Thailand. And that was probably the best, you know, it was really, really great. And
Yeah, they're probably, that audience is probably I would think it would probably, you're right, you'll probably be the most hyped to watch it because
yeah,
they're not jaded. Like if you ever sit inside of a, like the horror community here on YouTube,
yeah,
and you sit there and you sit in a few of these live streams, you'll hear people talk about movies, and you always, some of the things you hear about is that you don't really hear a lot of excitement. You don't hear a lot of jazz. Like you hear a lot of jadedness. Like you know, or worse is that you'll sit there and it's like you hear some of these folks. You'll sit there and say, "Well, Hollywood's, they have no new ideas." And then you come back there and you go, like, what about the long night? Like, oh, who's that? What's that?
yeah,
Holy crap! Why don't you just watch it and give it a look and instead of waiting for the next Scream movie, you're
yeah,
sitting there, they're bankrupt of ideas. Well, part of that bankruptcy is because the fans aren't going out there and trying something new
yeah.
and talking about it. They're just sitting there waiting for the next Halloween movie, and I and my Mr. Bones and Hobbs. I mean, we're all Waffles. Our basic Autumn Ween Queen. We're indies. We're indie people. We
Great.
like indie films. That's what we thrive on.
People.
But what the mainstream horror fan, the casual,
Mhm.
it's hard to get people to watch something new. Well, who's in it? Is it are there any superheroes in it, or that sort of thing? Um, yeah,
Well, I find that they're like we were talking about earlier. I mean, there are different kinds of horror fans too. I mean, there's like the guys that like they want to watch something really disturbing and gross and fucked up, and then there are like people who want to watch, the kind of more like supernatural horror films, and then there are these people that like the kind of heady stuff like the A24 horror films, and
yeah, Mister
yeah,
Mister Bo.
they
Yeah,
just they bash heads, and it's like we all like horror movies. It's like we don't all have to like the same movies, but man, I mean, people are vocal. It's like a movie's either awesome or it's the worst thing they've ever seen. There's no like middle ground anymore on the internet.
uh, yeah, because okay, all right. See, you're gonna put me out like that, Bones. So yeah, it's like I'm not the biggest A24 fan, right? So
Yeah,
I'm just not. I'm a IFC guy, IFC Midnight. I think their movies are just freaking outstanding. Art exploitation, love that label, love them, love the movies they made. I just think A24 films are, they're okay. I think there are a lot of them are overhyped. Like, oh my God, X is the best thing, I'm going to see this year. And it's like, it's only March. It's like, I can't sit there and tell you that's going to be the best thing I'm going to see all year.
yeah,
Uh, I mean, sometimes it happens. I mean, I can't say that doesn't happen.
yeah.
Like I've seen movies in January that I knew was going to make my top 20. I mean, yeah, I get that. But a lot of times it seems like everything they release, that's what everybody says. So,
They have
yeah,
a fan base, that's for sure. I mean, I like a lot of their movies, but I think that like I remember seeing a film of theirs called Lamb. I don't know if you saw it, but man, I couldn't stand it. I just thought it was like so. It's like it's like anything. They're going to make movies that are good and movies that aren't.
I actually really want to see like I've been
Yeah,
looking for it. Yeah, I've been looking for it.
very stoked for it, and it's not the movie that they sell you on.
Yeah,
It's
they
not that
always do that though.
it didn't deliver what I was hoping I would get from the movie.
Now, WellGO-USA, that's a really good distributor.
Yes.
They put out some outstanding horror.
Yeah,
I
great stuff.
mean, really good stuff. I've watched one of my favorite movies I've seen in the past couple of years. They did one called The Define Fury. I've
Mhm.
seen Tunnel. I mean,
And
they put
Train to Busan
out Train to Busan.
and
Uh, they,
Possessor
they,
too, David Cronenberg's son's movie.
yeah, they Possessor.
Yeah,
Yeah.
what
So
maybe
I mean, whenever I hear WellGo USA, my ears go prick straight up because they really do got a really great track record.
yeah, they're great and they're very very cool people there. I mean, they're as small as far as the number of people that work there, a small company, but they don't. If you notice, they don't put out like some companies like Saban or something, they just put out like 100 movies every week, and they don't do that. They spend the time to promote each movie, so they put out about one, sometimes two movies a month. They're
Right.
very cool like that, and they like let me have some say on the art for the boxes and stuff. And you don't get the final say, but you get to, at least they listen to you.
Right. Yeah, Saban is just like I mean, Lionsgate is probably man. I gotta say, I have to stand up for Lionsgate and the fact that, I mean, I know a lot of people are like, like I was watching some of the low budget movies that are being released during the pandemic, and a lot of people were sitting there going like, wow, what happened to Lionsgate? You know what? I would sit there and say nothing happened to them. Thank God for them, because they're like one of the last big studios or distributors that are putting out on a mass scale. Like when you go out there on Tuesdays to go see what's new at your local Walmart or your Best Buy, chances are you're going to see 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 Lionsgate movies that you haven't seen before. If they weren't there, why would you be going to there? Because brand new films are coming out on a weekly basis are very rare now. In fact, that's what ended up killing our video chain out here. The
Mm,
pandemic put it on, knocked it down.
yeah.
But the fact that Hollywood wasn't able to put out any movies out on any sort of a consistent basis is what killed it, put the nail in the cross.
Yeah, I mean, streaming is kind of done to movies like what the internet did to music about a decade ago. So it's like, I mean, fortunately, there's a lot of physical media fans still, and so
Oh,
physical media will stick around for quite a while. But it's definitely more of a collector thing now, as opposed to like everybody goes out and buys the DVD.
yeah, it's definitely collectors. I mean, yes, we're all collectors here. Yeah, we are. Everybody here. That's what we do. I mean, there's a few people out I know that are streaming. They like streaming and whatnot. But for the most part, if you ask anybody in the chat, they'll tell you that yeah, they have like 3, 4, 5,000 movies or so or more. And they're collectors. Yeah, definitely. Um.
But by the way,
So
I wanted to mention really quickly, I just saw last week, I went to a screening of a new IFC horror film called Hatching. That was pretty good.
that looks insanely good.
Yeah, it was good. You'll dig it.
Yeah,
It has the best practical puppet monster I've seen in a long time. It's very
that
cool.
it looks so creepy.
It's
It
kind
looks.
of comedy though, too. Just so you know, I mean, it's not the darkest film in the world. It's got some funny bits, but it's good.
Sure.
Watch.
Yeah, yeah, I saw, I like, because I saw the picture and it shows, I know it's a Finnish film, and they showed the preview in the trailer, they show the mom and the dad, and they're all smiling and happy. And
Yeah,
then, you see the mom just like goes, it's like, she's almost like more scarier than the creature because she's smiling so happy, and then she's not. And it's really unsettling.
yeah. It's a
Um,
very smart movie. I don't know, like, yeah, it's a foreign film, so I don't know how well it'll play with a lot of the horror fans, but it's fun. It's got a great practical monster. So that for me, that was the best part of the whole movie.
yeah, it's on my list for
Yeah,
sure. It's
it's
on
worth.
my Uh, yeah, there's a lot of IFC movies that are on my list. I keep hoping to find some of them. I know Paul Verhoeven put out one called Benedetta that I'm looking for.
Well,
Um,
I haven't seen it yet, but I heard it was great.
I heard it was fantastic.
Yeah. Well, he's
The one I saw last year that I was really it's when the pandemic hit and knocked down everything flat. The only movies that were actually being released at the theater were a trio of IFC midnight films: Relic, The Wretched, and the one with Haley Bennett, who I absolutely, she's amazing.
mm,
Uh, Swallow.
I haven't seen that one.
Swallow is intense. That's Yeah. Don't watch that movie with a full stomach.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, don't watch that. That movie will have you really clenching your ass cheeks. Uh,
Oh,
but I'm excited for Saint Maud. I mean, we were talking about that, and we were talking about yesterday. We're talking about the. I was so happy when you mentioned this. Because I don't. Nobody ever talks about this movie. I've sent this movie to a few people when, you know, at the Dollar Tree, they would have it. So
Yeah.
I picked up a few copies to send to friends, and that was Avatar.
Oh yeah.
That movie is absolutely, yeah. I was so tickled when you said you watched that. I'm like, hell yeah, these
Well,
got awesome taste.
Darren Lynn Bousman, you know, it's like it was playing at a festival where I was at already, so I thought I would check it out because I like his work most of the time, and or you know, I mean, he's a good director. So, uh, but and that was a movie I think that he really wanted to make, as opposed to some of these other films that he just kind of takes on as jobs.
Right, right. He's one of those directors that does director's commentary on every movie he does. I think it's probably built into his contract because every time I see him, he's doing it. Same thing with Adam Green and Joe Lynch.
Mm.
Uh, they do commentaries on all their films, and I watched Darren Lynn Bousman. He did a movie called Saint Agnes, and he called himself a gunslinger, a director for hire. And you know, he on the commentary, he's talking about the movie, saying how he went to the producers and he was coming up with some suggestions that to make the movie a little bit better. And they were just like, no, it's okay, just direct what we gave you. You know, it's like I'm just flabbergasted at that. I'm going like, dude, that guy made Saw.
Yeah,
You know, it's like he scared the shit out of half America. And he made Repo the genetic opera. I mean, the guy's he's brilliant. He made Avatar, and then you're gonna sit there and give him guff about you know, wow. I'm just like, why the hell would you hire someone like that with a super talented if you're not gonna listen to him?
hey, yeah, I'm with you, man. You know, and it's you know, I mean, it's like actually, you know, Damon, the producer I mentioned earlier, he was a producer on a right before, or no, maybe it was right after we shot The Long Night, a movie called Now I Die, which is Darren Lynn Bousman directed in Thailand. But it was another one of those like they were looking for a director and they picked him. You know, it's like it wasn't a movie that I think you know he was hired to direct it. It was
Sure.
on Netflix for a while. I don't know if it got a physical release or not, but it,
Now, yeah, yeah, yeah. How about that? Let me ask you this, Rich, and then our time's running out, so I won't keep you too much longer. But what do you feel about streaming services that won't do home release, that won't do physical release? I mean, if you're a director, right, and let's say for the Long Night, and you know, and you talk to the producers, and you sit there and say, listen, um, you know, we have a chance to go on Netflix, and you go up to them and say, I don't mind doing a Netflix deal, but I want this movie to be released.
yeah,
I don't want to lose a quarter of my audience, you know, because a lot of people in the horror community, they really don't do streaming that much. They are the collectors, you know, the hardcore horror fans. They're the ones. They're film collectors too. You know that I mean, you look at. I mean, there's a lot of collectors in here, but most of like I would sit there and say, safe to say that like 85 people of them, they're
mhm,
all they're all horror fans. They're all horror collectors.
yeah,
You know, and to me, it's like half those people, maybe to even a third of those people, they don't do streaming.
yeah. Well, I mean, I would say that you know, like distributors like WellGo understand that, you know, so that's why they did a release like that. We one of the reasons why, I mean, I didn't have a choice. It wasn't The Long Night's not my movie, in that like I wasn't a producer on it or anything, so I didn't have any say on who was going to be our distributor. I feel lucky that WellGo was the company that took the movie because I like WellGo. And you know, one of the producers told me, I mean, WellGo, the reason they went with WellGo was it was maybe not the best upfront deal, but it was like they guaranteed that they were going to put it in theaters. So and do like what they call a day and date, where they release it on video on demand and in theaters on the same day. So that was important to them and to me, and they did it. And then you know they always do good home video releases. Like all their discs are cool. You know they put, and I tried you know to encourage them to do a Blu-ray. I did a lot of, if you buy the disc, whether you get the DVD or the Blu-ray, they both have it. But there's like commentary. I did 3 special features. I did. I put my short film, The Loop, is on the disc, and so I wanted to, because I also believe that if you want people to buy your thing, you should give them some value. But so how do I feel about streaming? I mean, I watch streaming. We have streaming services here, and there are a lot of movies on streaming that I can't get on disc, so
Yeah.
that's just the reality of it. And then there are some movies that maybe I'll watch on streaming that I'm glad I didn't buy on disc because, it was not what I wanted to watch,
Oh, there's a lot of movies like that. I mean, I mean that like we talk about the one service we talk about here in our group is Tubi, and I could go there and I can tell you right now, I've seen a few of those movies on Tubi, and I'm going like, other than getting them for $1 at the library, I
Yeah.
was so glad I would never buy any of these movies.
Yeah.
That's the thing. I never would buy any of them. Mr. Bones was mentioning about the Texas Chainsaw Massacre because Netflix has a really bad habit of doing that. It's like if they're doing in-house production,
Yeah.
they don't do home release. And to me, it's like I don't understand if is that do they truly have that much clout and power to be able to go to a producer and sit there and say, yeah, we're going to take your movie, but if we do that, we put money into it, but we're not going to release it to the audience. We're not going to do a home release.
I mean, if they pay for it, they get to do with it whatever they want. I mean, that's just how it works, And now, like, certain people will make deals with them, like, like when Fincher did Mank, which was a movie that Netflix paid for about the making of Citizen Kane. It was in his contract. It has to go to theaters first. It just, there's, that's not an option. And
Yeah.
so, people that when they're working with streaming services, if they have enough pull or clout, they might be able to do that. Be like, I want a physical release, or I want a theatrical release or something. But you got to be, I mean, Netflix is huge. I mean, they have tons of money. All of those streaming services now, the big ones, they have a lot of money, and there's a lot of competition for people's eyeballs. So they're spending money on these things, and it's kind of a drag because it's how you can really, a lot of people will do it to, they go to these guys because, outside of doing a studio film, it's the only way to get something with a big budget produced,
Yeah.
So, but HBO actually, they put a lot of their stuff out on disc too, so.
Yeah, West Warner Brothers. So I know Warner Brothers and Comcast Universal, and of course Paramount, it's CBS Paramount. I mean, they all do home releases, everything that they get, everything comes out on their, as far as like NBC will release the, Law and Order, or CBS released, the NCIS or whatnot. We still get home releases of those.
Yeah.
But with like with that one big movie they did for Netflix, was it Red Notice? It'll never see the light of day. Bones mentioning the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. We're not going to get a home release out of that. And it's like,
it's probably for the best. I don't know if you saw it, but
I heard. I was not too impressed with that. I was like, wow, 80 minutes. It's like, that's not really much of a movie, No,
I mean, it's like, look, it's I mean, it's not terrible. It's just like, I mean, I shouldn't badmouth it because it's a competent movie. They made a decent movie, but it's not, the problem for me is that, like, the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre is one of the great horror films of all time.
Yeah.
And it's just like, you're kind of, and like you're talking about the fans, they love that movie. And there've been a zillion sequels and remakes and reboots, and none of them have been close to as good. And it's just like lightning in a bottle. They're never going to capture it again. So
no, it's funny because there are some horror movies that the remakes are just as good, if not better. Like the Evil Dead remake.
Yeah,
top notch, top drawer. It's like, hell yeah.
I would argue John Carpenter's The Thing is the great remake movie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the gold standard. Listen, Rich, I want to thank you for this. I want to thank our chat for hanging out with us, Mr. Bones. hanging out with us. I know that he's got to get going. He's got another stream he has to go to. But I want to thank you to come out and hanging out with us, Rich, and talking about your film. I had a great time. I hope you did too. We have some. I hope I asked some interesting questions.
Yeah.
And I'm looking forward to getting a copy of The Long Night. I'll let you know when I do. You'll see me going up there, going like, I got it. Um, and I hope they give you a copy. They should be giving you a box. I don't know what.
I picked up my own copy, actually.
You got one? You bought one?
Yep. Honestly, in WellGO's defense, if I called them up and bugged them, they would send me a copy. I'm 100% sure. But they sent me like a big stack of posters, and I felt kind of guilty, kind of going back and being like, I don't know. I just didn't want to bug them. So.
I think you deserve. It's your movie. I think you deserve to have a Blu-ray copy.
Yeah.
It never fails to amaze me when I hear because I actually have to ask this question once in a while. Sit there and say, did you get a copy of your movie? Because I swear to you, 50% of the time, the director's going like, no, I didn't. It's like,
I'm pretty sure I asked they would send it to us. I mean, I know when we did Ghost House with Vertical, they sent us like 10 DVDs,
Sure.
So if I hit WellGO up, I'm sure they would send me discs.
So thanks again, man. I mean, we'll stay in touch. I want to see, when you start getting lined up for your new project, we'll stay in touch for that. And, we'll come back and do this again.
Yeah.
I had a lot of fun.
Yeah,
I had a lot of fun. And thanks for hanging out with us. And let everybody know that you got to do this. I got to do the calendar. So on this Saturday on May 7th, we'll be back here for a special show. We have actor, songwriter Paul Green will be here with us at 5 p.m. Eastern Time. This Sunday, the 8th, the Midnight Society will be welcoming the IFC Midnight Nights to talk about an A24 film. Yes, I love it. I love my job. I'll send you a link to that if you want to come over and hang out and watch what we do.
Which A24 film, can I ask?
Pardon me?
Which A24 film?
Saint Maud.
Oh yeah. Okay, my man, I love that.
Yeah, I'll send you I'll send you a note reminding you about it, and if you want to come over and watch what we do, that would be awesome.
Yeah.
On Monday the 9th, me and the Cheetah were on the road. We're going over to our good friend Katie's Popping the Popcorns channel, and we will be talking her new show called Creator's Corner. Will be her first guest. On the 10th, we have Ava Potterfield and her husband Doug will be here with us on the 8 p.m. on Tuesday. All right. I want to thank you guys all again. I think you're saying that. I'm out of here. So is Rich. Thanks so much. Peace.
Take it easy, guys.
Stay right where you're at, Rich.
What's that?
Stay right where you're at.
Okay, I'll do it.